But that gaping hole remains that can only be filled by Him. Why then do those who claim to believe in God but follow false religions have the same issue? They believe in God, or a God. I've met a number of, what we call in Iraq, MBBs, Muslim background believers. They're brought up to believe in Allah. They follow Islam, and the older ones, at least, saw the result of following that faith to the nth degree. They saw that in ISIS, how it was played out. Then they see the Christian people that come and minister to them and assist them when no one else will. And then they come to trust Christ. They were religious all along, but very, very empty. And now their lives are filled with contentment because they have come to know Him. All the while, knowing that there was something more than just a veiled belief in God and religious practice. There's actually a God that can be known and wants to be known. And apart from being known, we will never find fulfillment in life. And there are so many people in that category. Those that are going to their classes may be dismissed at this time. And we are going to go back again to Isaiah 44 and try to move forward from the well, if it were in my notes, I would just call it foundation for this week. Since it wasn't in my notes, I guess I'd have to call it a side track. But the fact that there are so many people who go to great lengths trying to assume that there isn't a God, or that or they make a God in the figment of their imagination. And as we discovered, doesn't matter how big a God you imagine, a real God in real life is going to be much better than that. You know, as the illustration, you could have 50 pounds of gold in a dream given to you, but wake up and somebody give you an ounce of gold, and the ounce of real gold is worth far more than 50 pounds in a dream. Just the reality of life. What we, however, come to discover is this: the more we know about God, the more we realize that He is far beyond what our little minds could imagine. Far beyond, far better, far wiser, far more powerful than we could even begin to imagine. Isaiah 44, verse 6, thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and His Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first, and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. He would know. Those who claim there is no God, they're sure of it, thus arrogantly claim that they know one end of the universe to the other, and can assure you that there is no God anywhere in it. That they are familiar with realms beyond just our physical realm, and that there is no God there. It's a claim that cannot be supported in any way. They claim man invented God. They believe naturalistic foundational understanding that leads to evolutionary thought. They believe that matter, what you see and touch, is all that there is. And that, unfortunately, is terribly without hope. Everything that we see deteriorates. Everything that we see deteriorates. New homes get older. New cars wear out. Same with clothes. Trees only last so long. They get old and diseased, and the nice yard that you escape can be washed out with a good storm on the right day. That's the nature of stuff. God, however, is immune to all of that. Naturalists believe that man has no soul or spirit. He is matter only. We're just the stuff that we're made of. They deny any form of supernatural, denying the existence of it. Obviously, they make this arrogant claim that there is nothing to which they don't know. Most of us, the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. The more we learn, the more we realize there's stuff out there that's beyond what we've already acquired as far as knowledge. They believe everything came into existence over time through chance and natural process. Somehow this natural process no longer is natural because it doesn't any longer exist. It's not visible. Truth, then, and here's the danger point, here's a separating point that I think is crucial for us to understand. Truth, then, is self-determined by the naturalist, by their experience, and by what they claim to be rational thought. However, their very foundation itself is not rational. We also have to acknowledge this. I think as believers we must acknowledge this and should, even though, you could say, well, it hurts our arguments, but rational thought is limited and warped by the fall. Our minds don't function as they should. It's nearly impossible for us, any of us, as human beings, in every situation whatsoever, to be absolutely, completely, entirely unbiased. We all have leanings of some sort, and to the extent that we may try to thwart it, we are still human beings with a selfish nature, and we tend to do that which hopefully in our minds ultimately benefits us to some point. So that whole concept of unbiased rational thinking is it's a nice idea, but in a fallen world, it's not the reality that we might wish it to be. In contrast to them, we believe that just as God declares himself that he alone is God. One simple verse, verse 6. I am the first, I am the last, beside me there is no God. Do you believe that? We argued last week, a simple definition of God excludes a God that can't truly be God. If he's not self-existing, if he's not all-powerful, if he's not eternal, if he's not unchanging, that is to the point where anything about him changes, or the very possibility of him remaining to be God could change, he's not God. This whole Hindu mindset of hundreds of thousands of different gods with different concepts. No. Lesser little gods, they're not gods. God, by definition, is one superior to all others and remains such. He must be, as he claims, God and God alone, where there is no other God. That is, he's self-existing and he is all-powerful. He's not dependent on anybody to make him. He's here on his own accord. Everything else, however, is fully dependent on him. He is all-powerful. That is, he does not need our help with anything. I have not a clue how much the earth weighs, and I don't know that scientists, though they may speculate, I don't think they truly know. Okay, you can calculate the volume of water and the weight of water and dirt and everything, but not all dirt weighs the same. Some dirt by volume weighs less than other dirt. I don't know that there's a scale big enough where you could just take the earth and set it on the scale and find out how much it weighs. And is that before or after the tree adds girth and weight? It's changing. But how does it change? It's all here, right? So who helped God put it where it is? We don't know how heavy it is, but we have to assume that there's a great deal of weight to the earth. How did he get it put in place? He didn't need any help. He's all-powerful. If he alone is God and there is no other, then everything that is was created by him. Everything came about because of him. And as he claims that all that is was created by the power of his word. And we must then assume, and rightly so, that creation displays his power and intelligence. And that since God is, and we cannot see him, just the evidence of what he has made and what he does, then there is without question a realm of supernatural beyond what our physical eyes can see. That we, as God informs us, were made with soul and spirit. We are made to be whole beings, not just physical beings. All of this then leads us to a completely different bottom line than what the naturalists end up with, and it's this. Truth, then, is defined by God. That is the foundational difference, the core between naturalistic mentality and biblical worldview. Truth is defined by God. What he says is true. Everything God says is true. He cannot be wrong. He is the judge of all. As believers, it should be that we are reasonably consistent in what we say, so that one might think that we speak truthful. We should. But there is a limitation there because we do not know everything. It's far too easy for us to be mistaken. He, however, knows all, and all he says is true. He cannot be wrong. He is the ultimate judge of all. He not only exists and created all things, but has chosen to reveal himself to make himself known. That is, if he had not, we would not know him. He chose to make himself known. There is a different view emerging in the midst of these various worldviews that we find today, but here's some little side additions to that. Transcendentalism, or pantheists. Some may refer to general ideas simply as postmodern, because postmodernism bought into a lot of that. A little sarcasm here perhaps in the core, but the beauty for them is that they can believe a wide variety of things. They can accept just about anything. They seek to broadly welcome most who are relatively similar, which they believe gives credence to their wide variety of views. We kind of see two sides of this today. We see people that claim to be inclusive but are very narrow and exclusionary, right? And yet we see people that attempt to be all-inclusive, which means they really have no idea what they believe or stand anywhere, and pretty much anything goes for them. And that's this is the sum total of all that end up in that pool of people who really don't know who they are, how they got here, what they're here for, or what anything means. They just agree that the other person doesn't know any more than they do. I mean, that's about what it amounts to. But broadening all of this as they claim to, in being open to various views and so forth, they claim gives them credence. And yet the only thing that they are adamantly certain about is that you really can't be sure of anything. If you're open-minded, you accept anything, you tolerate anything, except those people who are absolutely certain about something. Truth. What is one thing that irritates people today? Truth. What'll get a news reporter or a congressman irritated? Truth. Bring actual facts to a hearing, and that really gets people going. They don't want to hear it. They don't believe there is any real truth, certainly not objective truth. Universal truth. Absolute truth. The interesting thing that I've discovered traveling overseas is, even though I don't know the language and numbers, whatever numbers they have, 2 plus 2 still equals 4. They have different names for those numbers, but it still adds up the same. Universal, absolute, certain, objective truth. If you eliminate that, then each is free to determine whatever they consider to be true. There is a problem that exists in our world today. We deal with it because we live here in America. It affects the whole world. But politics, not just the essence of politics, but the effects of politics and the results of elections results in a roller coaster ride. Because it depends on who's in power and what their mindset is. Everything goes like this. Throw this out entirely. Well, you get the next one in and they completely reinstate it. And then you get someone else and they throw it out again. And then someone else comes up with something new and restates part of what was there. And then it just... Why? Why are we having some of the issues that we are confronting in our day with, in the last number of months with the current administration regarding anything? Because there are completely different and opposing views of what is right and what is wrong. Who is breaking the law and who is not? None of you are sworn judges, are you? I didn't think so. I'm not either. So it's easy to play backseat judge, but sort this. Who is wrong? Those that are opposing what officers of the law are trying to do, or officers who uphold the law and arrest people or deport people that are here against the law or whatever have you. One thing, if you can be certain about anything, one thing you can be certain of is not everybody agrees. What's true? That's the foundation of the issue that we have. And part of the problem that Christians face in this world is we are far too often led to frustration trying to combat all of these different zigzags along the way. All we have to do is hold to the truth. It doesn't change. And walk consistent with it. It's absolute. It's certain. There are those who claim they're free to determine for themselves what is true. But as I said, as it plays out in the rest of the world, you have people in places of control, whether it's various levels of government or whatever branch of government, and they're claiming what they believe to be true should be true for everybody. Or then you have those who have this ridiculous assumption that regardless of what their personal beliefs are, they can do their job objectively. What kind of belief is it? Or should I put it in these words? What value is there to what you believe in if you can just leave it aside and do perhaps contrary when you go to your job? The value of what you claim to believe in is very, very little if you can just leave it aside. There's another issue that we find as a result of what we see in our world with all of this that plays out. Most have no means of addressing polar opposites. Other than demeaning names or, calling people stupid or idiots or, you'd have to be a moron to vote for that person. They have everybody's free to come up to their own truth. However, their truth should be universal. And so they have a complete inability to comprehend the fact that there are other people with different opinions and different views that approach things completely differently, that can believe something completely opposite of what they claim. They would simply claim each is free to arrive at their own truth. But then they have a problem when somebody arrives at truth different than theirs. They don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to make of it. What's really bizarre and increasingly obvious in our world is one's truth is free to change however it will. What was true 10 years ago isn't true today. And then you wonder why people don't value truth. And don't even get started with AI and deepfakes and all of the stuff that I have to go through so many ridiculous computer trainings with the state police on all of this fake fraudulent stuff that's out there so that somehow they don't access my state email and come up with some nuclear secrets or something. I don't know what they think's in there. But how do you know what's true? How do you know it's true? People do strange things today. They try to impersonate somebody that they're not. There's all sorts of stuff that happens. You see stuff online, you don't know whether it's true or not. Being able to decipher what's true and what isn't in our online computer age is far more complicated, but truth doesn't change. Foundational to much of what many think is everything is possible, but nothing is necessary. No absolutes, no absolute power, no absolute authority outside of oneself. I should be able to do what I want to do. I should have the freedom to do it. If you don't like something, you don't like the cost of health care, for example, and you decide you want to kill a CEO that ultimately, when it all shakes down, individually by themselves have very, very little to do with the system and aspects that frustrate you, and you take their life, then there are people that are adamantly defending that action as if that's justified. Makes sense. A complete inability to sort out what is actually true. I don't know about you. How many times do you reflect on the Old Testament and you just think God in His goodness and grace only gave us 10 commandments? You know how many laws there are in the books with pages and pages and pages, and nobody knows what's legal and what's not legal and what's right and what's wrong. He gave us 10. 10. And we still have trouble keeping them, don't we? No absolutes, no power, no authority outside of oneself. They tune inward and determine what's right for me is ultimately right. I have had to sit through some absolutely horrendously disgusting interviews. Individuals describing activity that they chose to engage in and are shocked that there are those in the world that would have a problem with what they did, and why are there laws that say that that activity is illegal and wrong? Absolutely no foundational, absolute, universal, objective truth. Then there are those who see everything spiritual. They don't believe in the supernatural, but they have a spiritual side to them. You ever notice that today? They're spiritual, but they don't believe in supernatural. They don't really believe in God. They have a decided arrogance. They believe all things are divine, so that there's a part of God in everything that is. That's where the transcendentalism, pantheist mentality comes into play, that everything, God's sort of in everything. It's all out there. People, rocks, trees, starfish, everything. They claim any and all paths lead to God, and understanding this God is defined as they would choose of themselves to define, and one is as good as another. Until you choose an opposing God, then that's not so good. You got to be careful with that, right? But like many things in life, you don't know what the opposing is until you choose it. And then everything breaks. Their God is impersonal. He's merely an idea. He's disconnected from good and evil. Again, we go back to this foundation I laid last week of just an imaginary God, a figment of imagination, a God that is just nothing more than an idea in their mind. That's not God. They might describe it this way: they need to get in touch with their inner self. That's not always helpful. If I have to get a 2,000-pound weight off of me, I can search my inner self all day long, and I'm not going to find the strength to move that. I have a limitation. We look inside ourselves, we find we're no bigger than the situation that we approach. Those that have this more spiritualized idea that God is sort of loosely defined as a part of everything that's out there hold to cyclical views like reincarnation, or for some, a loose idea of a better place. How many people do you know that claim that when they die, they're going to go to a better place that is loosely defined by their preferences? They don't really want to believe in God unless it's a God that they have imagined that's going to be okay with whatever they choose. That's not God. It can't be. God says, I'm the first, I'm the last. There is no God beside me. None. We'll go through some simple questions next week and look at how distinct our thoughts and response and answers to those are. Simple, perhaps, but valuable questions like, how do you find your way to God? If there is a God, how do you get to him? Seems to me like that's an important question. And not all the answers can be right. Used to be people stopped at gas stations to ask for directions. Don't have to do that as much anymore. Used to work at a gas station in college for a little while and near the highway, and one of the guys that I worked with he thought, if people are so stupid they don't know where they're going, then they're going to come and ask me for directions. I'm going to send them the wrong way. You're by 96. You had east and west. And he would relentlessly just send them the opposite direction they really needed to go. Generally, they would just need to go one more exit. They thought they'd gone too far. They didn't go far enough. And he would say they passed it and tell them to turn around and go back. There's an east and there's a west. There's a north and there's a south. Right? They're different directions. You can't tell me that every way to God is just as good as another. Doesn't work. We'll sort some of that out. Some of the basic questions of life, how we know things, how we conclude what is, and how you make determinations. Sometimes the answers aren't always what we like. We have to acknowledge that on occasion, don't we? We don't always like the weather. It's not up to us. It's not up to us. We have a God who providentially cares, gives us abundantly what we need, gives us more in terms of grace than we truly deserve. We might not like all of it. How do we determine that? How do we know what's true and what's good and what's right? Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you for this simple but yet so powerful truth that you alone are God and there isn't another. All the instability that we face in American political life eliminated in terms of life in general because you are God. You always will be God. There will never be a time you won't be God. And what a stability and foundation and hope that gives us. We thank you. And thank you for making that known to us. You are so good. You are so gracious. You're so loving to us. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.